Hi everyone and welcome to my new video. Today we are setting up my bullet journal for October and I'm really excited about this theme as the style of it is a little bit different compared to my previous themes. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I will talk more about them a little bit later, but now let's start setting up my cover page. As you saw from the intro, my theme this month is cats with some magical vibes. I wanted to do a cat theme last year but couldn't draw them yet, so I thought now would be the perfect time as I had some time to practice. This theme was also inspired by tarot cards, so that's why I drew the lines with the ruler first. I decided to draw this very cartoonish cat, which you probably saw in the sketches I showed earlier. At first I really struggled with drawing the cats because they always ended up looking like bears or dogs for some reason. I guess the most difficult thing for me was to get the shapes of the face and ears right. And after I figured those out, my doodle started to look more like cats. I also added a little scarf to the cat because I thought it would suit the colder October weather perfectly. Originally I wanted to do a black cat as that would have been perfect for Halloween, but that just didn't look the way I wanted, so I went with a white cat with stripes instead that I'm going to draw later. I think the problem with the black cat was that drawing the face with white gel pen looked a little bit weird. I still wanted to have black on this cover page because I really like the contrast it gives, so I colored the background with black instead. I used a black brush pen from Sakura for this as it had a little bit bigger nib, so coloring didn't take as long. It looked quite streaky at first, so I went over the area twice to make it smoother and darker. I also added some shadows on the edges of the cat and focused more on the left sides because I imagined that the light would come from the right side. I didn't want to color the cat in completely, so I decided to draw some brown stripes to make it look a bit more colorful. I don't really know how the stripes usually look, so I just kind of freehanded these and added them on places where I thought they would look good. I'm actually more of a dog person as we've always had dogs in our family, so I don't know much about cats and I'm also a bit allergic to them. Cats are really cute though and I really enjoy drawing them. I would love to hear if you are more of a cat or dog person, so let me know in the comments. I feel like there are a lot of cat lovers in this Bujo community, so it would be interesting to do a little quiz. Anyway, for the first time ever I decided to use a different font for the October header, and writing it was quite intimidating as I couldn't see the pencil marks because of the black background. So I just had to freehand it and hope for the best. I think it turned out good and was a better fit for the cover page than my usual calligraphy. For the finishing touches, I just added some leaf doodles with white and gold gel pens, and this was the perfect way to cover up the streakiness of the background. If you are curious about the pens and other stuff I used in this video, make sure to check out the description box as I always link all the supplies there. By the way, I would recommend using a pen with archival ink for the black parts as the white looks a lot brighter on top of it. So instead of using a water-based marker like a Tombow dual brush pen for example, I would recommend using Tombow fudenosuke or pigma micron for this purpose. I'm not sure if this cover page ended up looking like a tarot card as those don't usually have these kinds of cats, but I do really like how this turned out because I combined two different ideas I had, and I think that is always a good way to create something unique. So if you ever struggle with coming up with a theme or finding your own style, definitely give it a try and see what comes up. Combining different ideas into one piece also gives more room for creativity, which is always fun. This cover was surprisingly quick to draw and I think it took about an hour for me to draw, which is not bad at least for me. I finished off the illustration by adding some gold details in the white borders of the card. I just drew some circles in different sizes and did this without sketching them first, which is very unusual for me, but I was feeling brave and didn't want to mess up the gold details with eraser, so that's why I did it this way. I don't know about you, but for me the page next to the cover page always feels a bit weird because I don't know what I should add there. Having a monthly spread next to the cover just doesn't feel right, so I usually add a quote page if I can find a nice quote that fits my theme. For this month I went for a quote that goes like this. The moon is a reminder that no matter what phase I am in, I'm still whole. I feel like good quotes can sometimes be difficult to find as they often sound a bit cheesy, but this one really resonated with me for some reason. I guess it's a good reminder that your worth doesn't depend on things you accomplish, and even if you are having a rough time, you are still worthy and whole as a person. Anyway, for the decorations I drew moons in different phases with my gold gel pen, which looks very shiny thanks to my ring light. I used a circle template for drawing the moons, but later realized that I probably should have used the same size for the half moons as well, but oh well. For the finishing touches I added this light neutral washi tape on the left side, and I'm going to add it later behind the tabs as well. I also cut out the rest of the Dutch doors and added washi to the tabs off camera as the process was pretty self-explanatory. Now it's time to set up my monthly spread for October. I love using calligraphy for my header, so I did that for this page as well. I could have used the same font as I did on my cover page, but that just didn't feel as comfortable. And you know what, I spent a lot of time practicing calligraphy, so I think it's good that I now embrace it. If you would like to improve your hand lettering skills but don't know how to get started on that, I have posted a lettering tutorial last year, which I will link in the description box if you want to check it out. I also recently posted 2 flip-through videos of my old bullet journals, so if you would like to see how my style has changed over these years, definitely go check them out. Anyway, I decided to use a ruler for all the lines this month because I wanted them to look very clean and straight. I also made the tops of the calendar and weekly planning boxes black so the spread would have a little bit more contrast. It felt a little bit scary at first as I've been using very soft and light colors for quite long, but I do really like how it turned out. As always, I made the calendar boxes 3 dots wide and 4 dots tall, and the weekly planning boxes were 5 dots wide and 9 dots tall. They are pretty small, but I have quite small handwriting, so they work well for me. I kept the rest of the setup very simple and added just a leaf doodle next to the header. Oh, and I also did something very new and exciting as I tore up some paper that I printed and added that on the side of the page. I got this idea from Tina's diary, as she also used some book paper on her September theme, and it looked really pretty, so I wanted to try it out too. On the page on the right, I decided to bring back one of my all-time favorite spreads, which is the One Line a Day spread. In this page, I will write something about my day every day, and I usually try to focus on the good things that happened as that helps me to build a more positive mindset. For some reason I stopped using this spread over the summer, but as I've been struggling a little bit with using my bullet journal, I thought this page would be helpful as it's a good way to make sure that you check in with your journal every day, or at least every couple of days. I kept the decorations again really simple and added the book page on the corners to make the spread look nice and cohesive. I also doodled a little leaf on the bottom right corner as I felt like the spread needed something more. I used a Tombow fudenosuke pen for drawing the leaf so the lines would look a little bit more organic, and then I colored the leaves with my gold gel pen. And now the spread is finally ready. Before we move on to my trackers though, I want to talk a little bit about today's sponsor, Skillshare. In case you haven't heard about them yet, Skillshare is an online learning community for creative people like you and me. They have thousands of inspiring and free online classes on topics like drawing, calligraphy, painting, productivity, video production and more. If you have a specific skill in mind you would like to learn or improve, Skillshare is the perfect place to start. I'm currently taking Andy J. Pizza's class called Find Your Style, 5 exercises to unlock your creative identity, and I've really loved this class so far as it helps you to define what your style really is and where it comes from. The best thing about this class is that it can help you to find your style in other things than visual art as well, because you can use the same tips for maybe writing a short story or piece of music if that's more for your thing. Even though I have found my art style, I have been struggling with it a little bit this year as I feel like I've been a little bit stuck with it because I haven't been experimenting with new things as much. This class really helped me to define my style in a deeper way, think about what my art says about me and what kind of feelings I want my art to create. The first 1,000 people to use the link in the description box will now get 1 month free of Skillshare, so definitely go check that out if you want to learn something new or improve your existing skills. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Next, I'm setting up my tracker spread, and I really enjoyed making this one as I experimented a little bit more with the materials. I'm using a layout which you might have seen before if you have watched my other Plan With Me videos. On the top I have a habit tracker where I keep track of things I try to do every day, and some habits I like to track just for fun so things don't get too serious. On the bottom I'm making my mood tracker, and for this one I will have a little box for every day which I will fill in with a doodle or two that describe my mood. I felt like the black on the top of the boxes looked quite cold and dark, so I went for a warm brown color with the spread to see what it would look like, and I think it made the spread look a little bit more softer, which was nice. I didn't feel like tracking any new habits this month, so I'm writing out the same ones I have been tracking in September. The first 3 are the ones I try to do every day, and the rest I do when I feel like it. I actually read 1 book this month, and I'm very proud of that as I've been struggling a bit with reading as an adult. I was a bookworm when I was a child and teenager and sometimes miss it, so I would love to get back to it. Anyway, the book I read was The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro, and I did like it even though it wasn't the easiest book to read as it was quite slow paced because of the theme of the book. I don't want to spoil it in case you want to read it yourself. Anyway, I'm looking for a new book to read in October, so if you have any recommendations, I would love to hear them. To decorate this page, I decided to add some craft paper from Memo of Norway notebook, and I decorated the paper boxes with some leaves in different colors. This was a nice and simple way to make the spread look a little bit more interesting as it didn't take super long. I first thought about making the boxes with a black pen because I don't have any black paper at home, but that would have taken longer, so I went for the craft paper instead, and I like how it gave some warmth to the spread. I used my white jelly roll and Pigma pen fineliner for this, and then I also used Acrylograph pen from the Amanda Rach Lee set in the shade Rice Paper, and I actually used that on the moon on my cover page as well. I didn't sketch any of the leaves beforehand because I wanted to go with the flow and see where that takes me. Leaf doodles are super easy to draw, so it was also easy to freehand them, and it was kind of meditating too. I added a little gold dots on the paper as well, which you can't really see unless the light hits them. Then I finished off the spread by adding pieces of the same book page I printed. This theme unexpectedly took a turn into a scrapbooking style, but I'm not mad about it as it was really fun. The only con was that I now have a little pieces of paper everywhere, so I had to clean up a little bit more after filming this video. Next, we are setting up my monthly review spread, which I always like to include in my bullet journal setups. You could also set this up near the end of the month, but I like to have it ready to use so I don't end up skipping it. The end of the month is usually a bit busier time for me, so setting up the spread in advance really helps. I've talked about how I used this spread in the previous video, so I thought now would be the perfect time to talk about my favorites in September, and I would love to hear your favorites as well. I started watching The Crown on Netflix as I hadn't seen it yet, and I'm now on season 2. It's been really interesting, and I've been googling different characters and events after almost each episode to figure out which scenes are true and which are not. I definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't watched it yet. I've been also playing Stardew Valley a lot, and we also played The Sims 2 with my sister the other day, and you can actually find that on the App Store if you have a Mac, and it was about 30 euros, which was a good price considering that it came with a lot of the expansion packs. Just mentioning this in case there are other Sims players out there who miss The Sims 2. It was the first version I started playing, and I think it was my favorite because 3 and 4 just didn't feel the same. Anyway, I decided to make a little pocket in the spread where I can store some memories like photos, movie tickets and stuff like that. These pockets are really easy to do, and I just really like the idea of storing some things in there. My friend Lisa has a lovely sticker shop called Sleepy House Lion, and she sent me some stickers recently, so I wanted to use them for decorating the pocket as I felt like it was missing something. I will leave a link to her shop in the description box so you can check it out, and if you like cats, I highly recommend doing that. Speaking about cats, I really wanted to draw another one so I can practice drawing them a little bit more. This time I drew a cat that is lying down, and this position was a lot more difficult, so I was looking at a reference photo while sketching it. This cat was pretty quick to draw because I wasn't coloring it in completely like I usually do with my doodles, so I could skip, for example, the part where I usually add highlights with a white gel pen. I also used a thinner fineliner for the face of the cat because the eyelashes would have looked a little bit bulky otherwise. At first I wasn't sure which color I want to use for the leaves that I'm drawing now with a gold gel pen. I think the gold looks okay, but black leaves might have worked well too. I also decided to add a little golden moon on the top to give this illustration more of a whimsical look. Because the bottom part was pretty empty, I added a grey shadow to balance out the illustration a little bit. As a final step, I added some lines with a light Acrylograph pen under the thought section so it would have a little bit more color. Now let's move on to the last spread I'm setting up in this video, which is the first weekly spread of October. Like I said earlier, I've been struggling a little bit with bullet journaling lately, as I haven't used it as much as I usually do. This often happens during the summer because I easily forget my journal if I'm not at home. I think part of the reason why I have been struggling is also that I just find setting up weeklies in the middle of the month challenging, as I usually film an Instagram reel at the same time, and that's a lot of work. I don't know, Instagram just doesn't feel the same anymore after all the changes over these last years. Anyway, I have been procrastinating with setting up my weekly spreads, so that's also why I have been using my bullet journal less, so I might try later setting up multiple weeklies at once to see if that will work better for me. For this weekly spread, I went for a horizontal layout just for a change and used a bit more black to add contrast. I used a white jelly roll in the size 10 for all the writing, but it ended up looking a bit bulky, so 0.8 size might have worked a little bit better. I do like how the writing turned out still, and using white gel pen over the black made me feel very nostalgic, as I did this quite often a couple of years ago. I decided to use craft paper for the decorations again, as I like the warmth it adds. I thought about using a dark blue paper at first, but I feel like it would have looked a little bit too harsh, so I went with this paper instead, and I'm glad that I did. I wanted this smaller piece to look like a tarot card, so I drew these borders in it with rounded corners, and then I also added a little moon and some clouds as I thought they would look cute. I also decided to make the clouds go over the paper onto the notebook page because I felt like it would have looked a little bit strange if the clouds just cut off on the border. After drawing the clouds, I added a lot of tiny sparkles and stars in the empty parts to add a little bit more magical vibes. I don't know if this ended up looking like a card like I originally wanted, but I think it turned out really cute still. For the final touches, I decided to add white highlights on the clouds because I felt like they really needed them so they would stand out a little bit more. For the longer strip of craft paper, I decided to draw some leaves and also add the same kind of borders to make these two pieces cohesive. I thought about making this in the same style as the decorated pages on my tracker spread, but I felt like the black pen didn't suit it this time, so I left it out. I didn't sketch any of these illustrations beforehand, so I was again just going with the flow and having fun with drawing different leaves and clouds. These doodles are really easy and simple, so there's no need to sketch them beforehand, but if you haven't drawn a lot of things like this, it's totally okay to sketch them out too. Anyway, I had to speed up this footage quite a bit because this video was getting pretty long, so I hope you don't mind that. I also wanted to quickly talk about this pretty lace tablecloth I have in the background. My mom actually made it for me and I really love it as it's always really special to receive handmade gifts. And now it's time for the final flip through of my October setup. I ended up adding the printed book page on this cover spread as well because I thought it would tie this theme nicely together. I think this theme ended up looking a little bit different compared to my previous ones, but it's only a good thing in my opinion as setting up this spread felt very refreshing. I haven't really used scrapbook paper in this way on my bullet journal before, but I will probably do that more often in the future as I really like how it looks. I would love to hear what you think about this theme and also what your theme is going to be if you have decided it already. Make sure to leave thumbs up and a cat emoji in the comments if you watched till the end and enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye!